This car isn't yours. Officer Brent Callahan said it before he asked her name, before he looked at the registration, before the rain had even finished sliding down the driver's side window. The words sat between them like a verdict already signed. Alicia Monroe kept both hands on the steering wheel of the black Mercedes, 10 fingers visible under the pale wash of his flashlight. The road behind her was a narrow two-lane stretch outside downtown Atlanta, slick with evening rain, glowing red and blue in the mirrors. She had been driving exactly 37 miles per hour in a 40-mile-per-hour zone, the radio low, her briefcase buckled into the passenger seat like a quiet witness. In less than 12 hours, she was supposed to stand inside the Fulton County Courthouse and take the oath as the new district attorney. But here, on the shoulder of a wet road beside a closed gas station and a small corner market, none of that mattered yet. To Callahan, she was only a black woman in a car he had already decided she should not have. Alicia lowered the window another inch. Cold rain misted her cheek. "Officer, may I ask why I was stopped?" Her voice was calm, steady, almost too gentle for the flashing lights behind her. Callahan leaned closer, his badge catching the blue pulse from his cruiser. He was tall, square-jawed, with the stiff confidence of a man used to people shrinking when he spoke. "Vehicle matching this description came back suspicious," he said. "Stolen, most likely." Alicia glanced at the dashboard clock. 6:42 p.m. Her appointment with the transition team had already been pushed once because of traffic. Now the folder in her briefcase, the one holding her signed appointment papers, felt heavier than paper had any right to feel. "That's impossible," she said. "This car is registered to me." Callahan gave a small smile that never reached his eyes. "We'll see about that." Across the street, under the striped awning of the corner market, a boy of about 13 had stopped with a grocery bag pressed to his chest. He was black, thin, wearing a gray hoodie darkened at the shoulders by rain. At first he just watched. Then, slowly, carefully, he pulled a phone from his pocket and raised it. Alicia saw the movement in her side mirror. She also saw Callahan's body camera, the small red light blinking on his chest. For a moment, that blinking light comforted her. Procedure, record, accountability. Then Callahan noticed her looking at it. His jaw shifted. His hand moved to the device. The red light went dark. The sound of the rain seemed to grow louder. Alicia's fingers tightened once around the wheel, then relaxed. She had seen men do this before, not always with cameras, not always with badges, but always with the same quiet message. "Now it is your word against mine." Callahan stepped back and tapped the roof of her car with 2 knuckles. "Step out." Alicia turned her face toward him, rain shining on her lashes. "Officer, your body camera is required to remain active during a traffic stop." The smile disappeared. The air between them cooled. Behind him, passing cars slowed, their headlights smearing across the wet pavement. The boy under the awning kept recording, his hands trembling just enough for the screen to shake. Callahan opened his mouth to answer, but before he could speak, Alicia said, "I will comply with lawful instructions. I am asking you to follow lawful procedure." For the first time, Callahan paused. Not because he was sorry, because she did not sound afraid enough. Alicia did not step out quickly, and she did not move slowly enough to give him an excuse. She unbuckled her seat belt with deliberate care, opened the door, and placed one black heel onto the wet asphalt. Rain gathered along the edge of her navy blazer and darkened the sleeve where it touched the car. The air smelled like gasoline, storm water, and hot pavement cooling too fast. She stood beside the Mercedes with her hands visible, shoulders straight, chin level. The traffic rushed past a few yards away, each car throwing silver spray along the curb. Officer Callahan looked her over, not as a person, but as a problem he had already named. "License and registration," he said. Alicia turned slightly toward the open door. "They are in my purse on the passenger seat. May I reach for them?" He gave a short nod. Slowly, she reached inside, removed her wallet, and pulled the documents free one by one. Her driver's license, her insurance card, her vehicle registration. The paper was clean, folded once, still smelling faintly of leather from the glove compartment. She held them out. Callahan took them without thanks. His eyes moved across the license first, then the registration, then back to her face. Something in his expression tightened, but not with recognition. With irritation. The facts were not arranging themselves the way he wanted. Alicia Monroe, he read aloud, stretching her name like he was testing whether it belonged to her. That is correct, she said. Address in Buckhead. He looked past her at the car, then at the briefcase on the passenger seat. Nice area. Alicia said nothing. She had learned years ago that silence could be a shield when someone wanted to pull anger out of you and call it proof. The rain tapped steadily on the roof, on the hood, on the badge pinned over Callahan's chest. Across the street, the boy under the awning shifted his weight, still recording. His grocery bag sagged in one hand, a carton of milk pressing against the brown paper. Alicia could see him trying to look brave and invisible at the same time. She knew that posture. She had worn it herself at 11 years old, standing on a sidewalk while her father emptied his pockets for officers who kept saying he matched a description. He had been wearing a work uniform then, still smelling of motor oil from a 12-hour shift. They let him go 20 minutes later, but Alicia never forgot the way his hands trembled when he reached for hers afterward. Not from fear, he told her. From holding back the truth because the truth had nowhere safe to land. Callahan's radio crackled against the rain. He stepped toward his cruiser and spoke low enough that Alicia could not hear the words clearly. She caught pieces. Black female. Luxury sedan. Possible false registration. Her stomach tightened, but her face stayed calm. In her purse, beneath a packet of breath mints and a courthouse access badge, sat the sealed letter confirming her appointment as district attorney. She could have shown it. She could have watched his tone change. But something in her refused to use her title as a shield before he had shown what he would do to someone without one. Callahan returned, holding her documents between two fingers. This is going to take a while, he said. You can wait by the front of the vehicle. Alicia glanced at the body camera again. Its light remained dead. Before we continue, she said, I am again requesting that your body camera be reactivated. His eyes narrowed. You like giving orders? No, Alicia said. I like records. The words landed quietly, but they landed hard. Callahan stepped closer, close enough that the flashlight beam washed across her shoulder instead of her face. You are making this harder than it needs to be. Alicia looked at the boy under the awning, then back at the officer. Her voice softened, not from weakness, but from control. No, officer. I am making sure it is exactly what it needs to be. For a second, the whole roadside seemed to hold its breath. Callahan had built a career on making silence feel like obedience. For 22 years, the uniform had opened doors, closed mouths, and turned his assumptions into procedure before anyone dared question the difference. In the precinct, some called him old school. Some called him reliable. The younger officers lowered their voices when he entered the room, not because they respected him fully, but because they knew he collected mistakes the way other men collected medals. He remembered faces by suspicion, neighborhoods by complaint numbers, and cars by whether he believed they belonged where he saw them. That evening, standing in the rain beside Alicia Monroe's Mercedes, he felt something he disliked more than defiance. He felt uncertainty. Her documents were real. Her voice was even. Her hands were steady. Nothing about her fit the story he had already started telling over the radio, and that made him press harder, not softer. He walked around the car slowly, flashlight tracing the tires, the license plate, the chrome edge of the trunk. Alicia stood near the front bumper, rain slipping down the side of her face and gathering at her jaw. The corner market lights buzzed across the street. The boy under the awning had not moved. Callahan noticed him now and lifted his chin. Put the phone down, he called. The boy flinched but kept recording. Alicia turned her head just enough to see the fear flash across his face. It was the kind of fear that arrived before anything happened, because history had already taught it what might happen next. He is on public property, Alicia said quietly. He is allowed to record. Callahan stopped walking. The flashlight lowered. I was not speaking to you. I understand, Alicia said. I am stating the law. That was when his patience thinned into something sharper. Not loud, not explosive, just cold. You know, most people who have nothing to hide do not talk this much. Alicia felt the old heat rise in her chest. The same heat she had felt in courtrooms when defendants were judged by posture before evidence, by zip code before testimony, by skin before truth. She let the rain cool it before she answered. Most officers with nothing to hide do not turn off their body camera. A car passed slowly, then another. Faces appeared behind wet windows, curious and cautious. No one stopped. That, too, was familiar. Callahan stepped back toward his cruiser, opened the driver's side door, and leaned in to check his computer. The blue glow lit his face from below, making his expression look carved from stone. Alicia watched the movement of his shoulders, the set of his jaw, the little pause when the system confirmed what the paper had already said. Registered owner. Alicia Denise Monroe. No stolen report. No warrant. No alert. The stop should have ended there. He should have returned her documents, reactivated his camera, and explained the mistake. Instead, he closed the cruiser door and came back with a slower walk. The kind of walk men used when truth had embarrassed them and pride needed somewhere to go. There is still an issue, he said. Alicia did not blink. What issue? The plate was flagged near a vehicle theft last week. Near, she repeated. Not involved. His eyes narrowed. You are real comfortable correcting me. I am real careful with language, she said. Her answer was soft, but it carried. The boy's phone captured it. The rain captured it. Even the road seemed to listen. Callahan looked toward the briefcase on her passenger seat. What is in the bag? Work documents. What kind of work? Alicia held his gaze. She thought of the sealed appointment letter. She thought of the oath waiting for her in the morning. She thought of her father, standing years ago under another set of flashing lights, choosing dignity because anger would have cost him too much. Legal work, she said. Callahan gave a dry laugh. Everybody is a lawyer on the roadside. Then he reached for the passenger door handle. Alicia's voice cut through the rain, calm and exact. Officer Callahan, you do not have my consent to search this vehicle. His hand froze on the handle. For the first time, he looked at her not as someone beneath him, but as someone he might have underestimated. And that frightened him more than he wanted to show. The passenger door handle stayed still beneath Callahan's fingers, but the pause around it widened until even the rain seemed to hesitate. Alicia stood a few feet away, her face calm, her shoulders squared against the cold water soaking into her blazer. She had not raised her voice. She had not stepped toward him. She had only drawn a line, clear and lawful, and somehow that line felt more powerful than shouting. Callahan slowly released the handle and turned toward her. You are refusing a lawful order? No, Alicia said. I am refusing an unlawful search. A passing truck sent a wave of water along the curb, splashing against the front tire of the Mercedes. The sound rolled through the moment like static. Across the street, the boy under the awning shifted closer to the brick wall, keeping his phone high. His eyes moved between Alicia and the officer, wide and unblinking. Alicia noticed how tightly he held the grocery bag against his ribs, as if the milk and bread inside were the only things anchoring him to normal life. She wanted to tell him to go home. She wanted to tell him this was not his burden to carry. But she also knew what it meant to be the only witness when power hoped nobody was watching. Callahan took one step toward her. You have been watching too much television. No, Alicia answered. I have been reading the Constitution. The words were not sharp, but they cut through him anyway. His mouth tightened. For a second, Alicia saw the calculation in his eyes. If he pushed harder, the boy was recording. If he backed down, she would leave with the truth intact. Pride, trapped between evidence and ego, looked almost like fear. Callahan lifted Alicia's documents and tapped them against his palm. You think paperwork makes you special? He asked. Alicia looked at the registration, then at the dark body camera on his chest. I think paperwork keeps people honest when memory becomes convenient. His expression changed again. That one had landed deeper. The red and blue lights slid across the wet pavement, across Alicia's cheek, across the Silver County seal embossed on a folder visible through the car window. Callahan followed her gaze and noticed the folder for the first time. Fulton County letterhead. Official envelope. Thick cream paper tucked beneath the edge of the briefcase. He leaned slightly, trying to read it without appearing to read it. Alicia saw him notice. She did not move to hide it. She did not move to show it either. Let him wonder, she thought. Let him feel what uncertainty feels like when it is used against you. Open the briefcase, he said. No, Alicia said. You do not have probable cause. I decide what I have. No, officer, she replied, still quiet. The law decides that. You enforce it. You do not own it. For a moment, the roadside became a courtroom without walls. The cruiser lights were the only lamps, the rain the only sound, the boy's phone the only record still alive. Callahan looked toward the market. Kid, I said stop recording. The boy lowered the phone half an inch, fear pulling at his arm. Alicia turned her head. Her voice softened enough to reach him without sounding like a command. You are allowed to record from there. Stay where you are. Stay safe. The boy swallowed and raised the phone again. Something passed through Alicia then. Not triumph, not anger, but a quiet ache. She remembered being his age, watching adults speak in careful tones because one wrong word could change the entire night. She remembered thinking justice was something inside buildings with flags and marble floors, something far away from wet pavement and trembling hands. Now she stood between both worlds, still unnamed, still unseen, but no longer willing to disappear. Callahan's radio crackled again, a dispatcher asking for status. He pressed the button at his shoulder and looked directly at Alicia as he answered. Still investigating. Alicia heard the choice in those two words. He was not looking for truth anymore. He was looking for a way to save himself from it. Callahan kept Alicia's documents in his hand longer than necessary, letting the rain bead along the plastic edge of her license as if the weather itself could wear down her patience. He walked back to his cruiser again, slower this time, and Alicia watched him through the blur of water on her lashes. The blue light inside the patrol car flickered across his face as he leaned toward the computer, but she could tell from the stiffness in his shoulders that he had already found what he needed and hated what it proved. The registration was valid. The insurance was active. The license was clean. The car was hers. The stop was empty now, running only on pride. Still, he stayed at the screen, clicking, typing, searching for a shadow large enough to stand inside. Alicia stood near the front of the Mercedes, rain sliding beneath her collar, her palms open at her sides. The cold had begun to settle into her fingers. Her briefcase sat inside the car, dry and untouched, holding the letter that would change every room she entered after sunrise. But out here, on the roadside, she was still being measured by an old suspicion that no title could erase. Callahan returned with her papers held low. There is a problem with your story, he said. Alicia looked at him steadily. I have not told you a story. I provided documentation. His mouth twitched. You are headed downtown at this hour with court papers, a luxury vehicle, and no explanation that makes sense. My destination is not evidence of a crime. That depends. On what? On whether you are smart enough to cooperate. The words came soft, but the meaning was clear enough to make the boy across the street lower his phone for half a second. Alicia saw it and felt something inside her tighten. Not fear for herself. Fear for what that child was learning in real time. That calm could be punished. That law could be twisted. That dignity had to ask permission to breathe. She turned her face toward the market. Keep your distance, she called gently. But keep the record. Callahan's eyes flashed toward the boy. I am warning you both. Alicia faced him again. Warning us against what, officer? He stepped closer, not touching her, but closing the space enough for his presence to press against the night. Against interfering with an active investigation. Alicia looked down at the wet pavement between their shoes, then up at the dark body camera on his chest. An investigation requires facts. Callahan gave a quiet laugh. You have an answer for everything. No, she said. I have a question for everything that does not sound lawful. The traffic behind them slowed again. A rideshare driver pulled to the shoulder 20 yards away, watching through a half-lowered window. A woman in a gray sedan paused at the corner, then drove on when the light changed. The world was close enough to witness and far enough to stay safe. Alicia knew that distance well. It was the distance between sympathy and courage. Callahan looked at the small gathering of headlights and faces, then made his next choice. He lifted Alicia's license where she could see it and said loudly, This identification will need additional verification. Alicia's voice remained level. By whom? By people who can confirm you are who you claim to be. For the first time that evening, Alicia almost smiled, not because anything was funny, but because the cruelty had become so plain it had circled back into absurdity. My identity is printed on the license in your hand. Licenses can be fake. Registrations can be checked. Cars can be stolen. And assumptions can be wrong. The words landed in the rain, clean and final. Callahan stared at her, and for a brief second, Alicia saw what he was truly fighting. Not a stolen car. Not a suspicious document. Not a dangerous situation. He was fighting the possibility that the woman he had tried to shrink was standing taller than his authority could reach. His radio crackled again. The dispatcher asked if backup was needed. Callahan held Alicia's gaze as his thumb pressed the button. "Send a supervisor," he said. "Subject is being difficult." Alicia inhaled slowly. The wet air filled her lungs like cold glass. Across the street, the boy kept filming. In the passenger seat of her car, the county seal on the envelope caught a passing flash of blue light, bright for one heartbeat, then gone. Callahan did not notice it this time. Alicia did, and she knew the truth was getting closer. The request for a supervisor changed the temperature of the roadside. Nothing moved faster, and yet everything felt closer. The cruiser lights, the rain, the boy beneath the market awning, the silent line of cars slowing just enough for strangers to look and then decide how much of another person's trouble they were willing to carry. Alicia stood with water running from her hairline to her collar, her blazer heavy now, her shoes darkened at the edges. Her hands were still visible. Her voice was still quiet. But inside her, something old had opened. She remembered her father sitting at the kitchen table after that wrongful stop years ago, his work shirt folded over the back of a chair, his palms flat on the wood, as if he were trying to keep the whole house from shaking. He had told her that anger was honest, but strategy kept you alive. He had told her that dignity was not silence, and silence was not surrender. She had not understood then. She understood now, standing in the rain with a badge she had not shown and a title she had not used, being tested by a man who thought power meant never having to explain himself. Callahan remained near his cruiser, speaking into the radio in clipped phrases, his back turned just enough to suggest control. Alicia could hear only pieces over the rain. Female driver. Non-compliant. Claims legal knowledge. The words floated toward her like labels looking for somewhere to stick. She let them pass. Across the street, the boy lowered his phone slightly, not from disobedience, but exhaustion. His arm had begun to shake. Alicia met his eyes through the silver curtain of rain. He looked younger now, smaller, a child who had come out for groceries and found himself holding the only working memory of the truth. She gave him the smallest nod. Not a command. Permission to breathe. He lifted the phone again, steadier this time. Callahan turned back and noticed the exchange. "You two know each other?" he asked. Alicia looked at him. "No, then why do you keep looking at him?" "Because he is a child standing in the rain because of your choices." For the first time, Callahan had no immediate reply. The sentence did not accuse loudly. It simply placed the weight where it belonged. A gust of wind pushed rain beneath the awning, and the boy stepped back against the glass door of the market. Inside, an older man stood behind the counter, watching with one hand resting on the register. His face carried the tired caution of someone who had seen enough to know when not to open the door too quickly. Alicia's gaze dropped to the pavement near her front tire, where a small object had slipped from her purse when she reached for her documents earlier. Her father's pen. Black barrel. Gold clip. A little worn near the grip from years of use. It lay in a shallow ribbon of water, catching flashes of red and blue like a tiny broken signal. She moved her foot half an inch, then stopped. Callahan noticed. "Do not reach for anything." Alicia slowly raised her hands a little higher. "It is a pen. I said do not reach." She looked at the pen again, and for one quiet second the whole world narrowed to that small thing on the ground. Her father had carried it when he signed repair invoices, when he wrote grocery lists, when he filled out her college financial aid forms at midnight after long shifts. He had given it to her the day she passed the bar exam and said, "Use this only when your name means something." Tomorrow morning, she was supposed to use it to sign the final oath documents. Tonight, it was lying in rainwater while a man with a dark body camera decided whether she was allowed to pick it up. Alicia breathed in slowly, then out. "Officer Callahan," she said, each word measured. "I am not your enemy." His face tightened, almost confused by the softness. "Then stop acting like one." Alicia looked at the boy, the market window, the passing headlights, the dead camera on Callahan's chest. "I am acting like a citizen." The rain softened for a moment, thinning into mist. In that brief hush, the distant sound of another engine grew clearer. Heavier. Official. Alicia turned her head toward the road behind the cruiser, where two white headlights appeared through the wet dark and slowed as they approached. Callahan looked too. His posture changed before the vehicle even stopped. Something in him recognized the shape of authority arriving, and for the first time that night, Alicia saw him prepare to explain himself. The vehicle slowed behind Callahan's cruiser with the deliberate weight of someone who did not need to hurry to be obeyed. Its headlights washed across the wet road, turning the rain into bright silver threads. Then the door opened, and Captain Eleanor Hayes stepped out beneath a black umbrella, her uniform sharp even in the storm, her expression already guarded. Behind her, a second vehicle pulled in, a dark county sport utility vehicle with the Fulton County seal on the door. Alicia saw it and felt the smallest shift in her chest. Not relief exactly. Relief was too simple. This was the sound of the truth arriving with witnesses. Callahan straightened at once, rolling his shoulders back as if posture could erase the last 20 minutes. "Captain," he called over the rain, "I have a suspicious vehicle stop. Driver is refusing to cooperate with standard verification." Hayes did not answer immediately. She looked at Alicia first. Her eyes moved from Alicia's soaked blazer to her raised hands, then to the dead body camera on Callahan's chest, then to the boy recording under the awning across the street. The captain's face changed by inches, not enough for a stranger to notice, but enough for Alicia to understand. Hayes knew something was wrong before anyone explained it. "Officer Callahan," Hayes said, "why is your body camera off?" Callahan touched the camera as if surprised to find it there. "Technical issue, Captain." Alicia said nothing. The boy's phone remained lifted. Rain clicked against the umbrella. Hayes turned her head toward him. "Son, are you recording?" The boy swallowed. "Yes, ma'am." "Stay right there, please." Her voice was firm, but not cold. Then the passenger door of the county vehicle opened, and Judge Marlene Whitaker stepped out, holding a folder against her coat. She was in her 60s, silver-haired, calm in the way only people with real authority could afford to be calm. She had been expecting Alicia at the courthouse 15 minutes earlier for a private signing before the morning ceremony. One look at the roadside told her why Alicia had not arrived. "Alicia," the judge said. The name landed harder than any accusation. Callahan's face tightened. His eyes moved from the judge to Alicia, then to the county vehicle, then back to the folder visible on the passenger seat of the Mercedes. The cream-colored envelope. The county seal. The truth he had been standing beside without knowing it. Alicia slowly lowered her hands. "Judge Whitaker." Her voice stayed respectful, steady, untouched by the satisfaction Callahan expected and feared. Hayes looked at Callahan now, and the softness left her expression. "Officer, do you understand who this is?" Callahan opened his mouth, but nothing came out at first. The rain filled the gap. Judge Whitaker stepped closer, her eyes fixed on him. "This is Alicia Monroe, the incoming district attorney for Fulton County." The words did not explode. They settled. That made them worse. Callahan's mouth parted slightly. His grip loosened around Alicia's license and registration. For the first time all evening, he looked at the documents as if they had become evidence against him. "I was not informed," he said. Hayes's reply was quiet. "You should not need to be informed of someone's title to treat them lawfully." The boy across the street lowered his phone just enough for Alicia to see his face. He was staring at her now, not like she had become powerful, but like he had just learned power could stand still in the rain and not become cruel. Alicia bent slowly, eyes still on Callahan, and picked up her father's pen from the shallow water near the tire. No one told her not to move this time. She wiped the barrel with her thumb, holding it carefully, feeling the old scratches beneath the rain. Callahan swallowed. "Ma'am, I can explain." Alicia looked at him, then at the dark camera on his chest, then at the small phone across the street that had remembered what his camera chose to forget. "You will," she said. "On the record." Callahan stood between the cruiser lights and the county seal, suddenly smaller inside the same uniform that had filled the roadside a few minutes earlier. His mouth moved once before sound came out. "District Attorney Monroe, I apologize if there was any misunderstanding." Alicia looked at him for a long second, the rain softening around them into a mist that clung to skin, glass, and metal. The word misunderstanding hung there, thin and polished, trying to cover too much. It did not cover the dark body camera. It did not cover the false description over the radio. It did not cover the boy across the street, still holding his phone with both hands, learning that an apology could arrive only after power recognized power. Alicia slipped her father's pen into the inside pocket of her blazer. "This was not a misunderstanding," she said. Her voice was low enough that people leaned in to hear it. "A misunderstanding is when someone reads a street sign wrong. This was a decision. Captain Hayes stood beside her, umbrella angled over both of them now, though Alicia was already soaked through. Judge Whitaker remained near the county vehicle, silent, watching Callahan with the stillness of someone who knew when a record was forming. Callahan tried to straighten again. I had a report of a suspicious vehicle. Then the report, your radio call, your computer search, and your body camera log will show that, Alicia said. All of it will be preserved. His eyes flicked to Hayes. Captain, I followed protocol. Hayes looked at the dead camera. That will be reviewed. The word reviewed struck him harder than a reprimand would have. It meant paperwork, interviews, timelines, questions he could not answer with posture. Alicia turned toward the boy under the awning. What is your name? She called gently. The boy hesitated, then answered. Marcus. Marcus, is your mother nearby? He nodded toward the market door. A woman had appeared behind the glass, one hand pressed to her chest, worry written across her face before she even stepped outside. Alicia softened. Please ask her to stay with you. No one is taking your phone tonight. Marcus glanced at Callahan, then back at Alicia. I got everything, he said. His voice shook, but did not break. Alicia nodded once. Then you helped the truth breathe. The words changed the boy's face. Not into a smile, not yet, but into something steadier. Callahan looked down at the wet pavement. Ma'am, I never meant for it to become this. Alicia faced him again. For a moment, she saw not just the officer, but the machinery around him, the quiet habits, the casual labels, the reports that sounded clean after the roadside had felt dirty. She could have humiliated him. She could have raised her voice. She could have made the whole moment about his embarrassment. Instead, she chose the heavier thing. Intent will be part of the review, she said. So will impact. He swallowed. Am I being placed under investigation? Captain Hayes answered before Alicia had to. Your stop, your camera deactivation, and your prior traffic stops will be referred to internal affairs immediately. Callahan's face lost color. The rain tapped against his badge. Alicia watched him absorb it, and there was no joy in her, only a tired kind of clarity. Accountability is not revenge, she said. It is what keeps the next person from standing where I stood without a title to protect them. Judge Whitaker stepped forward, her folder held close against the rain. Alicia, we can still complete the signing tonight. Alicia looked at the Mercedes, the wet road, Marcus and his mother now standing together beneath the awning. Then she looked back at Callahan. First, Captain Hayes needs Marcus's video secured properly, with his mother present. Then I want the body camera system audit requested before midnight. After that, I will sign. Hayes nodded. Done. Callahan said nothing. There was nothing useful left to say. Alicia opened her car door and took the sealed county envelope from the passenger seat. The cream paper was dry, untouched, almost glowing beneath the flashing lights. She held it against her chest and walked across the wet pavement toward Marcus and his mother. The boy looked up at her as if she had stepped out of a place he had only heard about. Alicia stopped beneath the edge of the awning, rain dripping from her sleeves. You were brave, she said. Marcus shook his head. I was scared. Alicia's eyes warmed. Bravery usually is. Behind her, the cruiser lights kept spinning, but they no longer owned the night. The courthouse was quiet before sunrise, the kind of quiet that made every footstep sound like a decision. Alicia Monroe entered through the front doors at 6:18 in the morning wearing the same navy blazer, now dry but faintly creased at the sleeves where the rain had held it for too long. The marble floor reflected the first pale light coming through the tall windows, and for a moment she could see herself in it. Not clearly, just a dark shape moving through a building that had once felt too far away for girls from her old neighborhood. In her inside pocket, her father's pen rested against the signed appointment letter. It had dried overnight on her kitchen counter beside a cup of untouched tea, its gold clip still scratched, its black barrel still marked from the road. She had cleaned it carefully, not to make it new, but to keep the evidence of where it had been. Judge Whitaker waited in a small conference room near the main courtroom. Captain Hayes was there too, tired-eyed but steady, with a folder already labeled for internal affairs. The body camera audit request had been filed before midnight. Marcus's video had been copied with his mother present, logged properly, and protected under witness procedures. By dawn, 3 older traffic complaints involving Callahan had been pulled for review, each one with language that now sounded painfully familiar. Suspicious behavior. Uncooperative subject. Vehicle did not appear to belong. Alicia read the phrases in silence, feeling the weight beneath their clean grammar. Paper could make harm look professional if no one forced it to tell the truth. Are you ready? Judge Whitaker asked. Alicia looked down at the pen in her hand. Her thumb found the old groove near the grip, the place her father's fingers had worn smooth over years of invoices, notes, and forms. Yes, she said. The oath was simple. The room was small. No cameras flashed. No crowd cheered. But when Alicia repeated the words, her voice carried into the hallway as if the building itself had been waiting. She promised to uphold the law, not as a weapon for the powerful, not as a wall against the frightened, but as a door that had to open the same way for everyone. When she signed her name, the pen moved cleanly across the paper. Alicia Denise Monroe, District Attorney. For a second, nobody spoke. Then Judge Whitaker placed a hand over the document and nodded once. That was all. That was enough. Later that morning, the main courtroom filled slowly. Reporters gathered near the back. Attorneys whispered beside polished tables. Deputies stood along the walls. Marcus sat in the last row with his mother, wearing the same gray hoodie, his phone tucked away now, his hands folded tightly in his lap. He looked nervous until Alicia entered. Then he sat a little straighter. Callahan was not in uniform. He sat near the side aisle beside a department representative, his face pale, his eyes fixed on the floor. Alicia did not stop beside him. She did not look down on him. She walked past with the same calm she had carried in the rain. At the front of the courtroom, a new nameplate waited on the prosecution table, its brass surface catching the morning sun. District Attorney Alicia Monroe. She placed her father's pen beside it. The room rose when the judge entered, but Marcus's eyes stayed on the pen. Alicia noticed. She gave him the smallest nod. Not a victory nod. A promise. The first case of the day was called, and Alicia opened the folder in front of her. Her voice, when it came, was clear, even, and warm enough to be human. Behind her, the courtroom settled into silence. Not the old silence that protected fear. Not the roadside silence that waited for someone else to speak. This silence was different. It had witnesses now. It had records. It had a boy who had kept filming, a mother who had stayed, a captain who had listened, and a woman who had refused to become cruel, just because cruelty had found her first. Sunlight moved across the nameplate, across the pen, across Alicia's hands. Outside, the city kept breathing. Inside, justice did not shout. It simply began.